At exactly 5 a.m., the town of Mapleford slept as it always did, quiet streets, darkened windows, and the soft hum of distant highways. But inside a small blue house at the end of Cedar Lane, Daniel Harper sat awake on the edge of his bed, staring at the glow of his phone screen. He had set the alarm for this hour for the first time in his life, and every part of him questioned the decision. Daniel was 32, an ordinary man with an ordinary job at the county records office. His days passed in predictable patterns: paperwork, coffee breaks, polite conversations, and evenings lost to television and exhaustion. He wasn't unhappy, exactly, but he wasn't fulfilled either. Life felt like a loop he couldn't escape. The idea of waking early had come from an old library book he found by accident. Tucked between dusty shelves labeled Personal Development, it spoke about a simple but powerful concept: one focused hour a day could change a life. Not magically, not instantly, but steadily, quietly, and completely. That morning, Daniel nearly went back to sleep. His body begged for comfort. His mind whispered excuses. But something deeper, something stubborn and hopeful, pushed him forward. He stood up. The house was silent as he moved to the kitchen, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat at the small wooden table near the window. Outside, the sky was still dark, but a thin line of pale blue hinted at dawn. Daniel opened a notebook he had bought weeks earlier and never used. For the first time in years, he asked himself a serious question: what do I want? At first, nothing came. Then slowly, words formed. He wrote about wanting meaning in his work, about his childhood dream of becoming a writer, about the regret of letting fear choose his path. The pen moved faster as thoughts spilled out. When the clock struck 6, Daniel looked up in surprise. 1 hour had passed. That day felt different, subtly, but unmistakably. At work, he noticed details he usually ignored: the rhythm of keys tapping, the sunlight falling across file cabinets, the quiet dedication of coworkers. He felt more present, more awake. That night, he went to bed early, not because he was tired, but because he was excited for the morning. The next day, and the day after, Daniel returned to the table at 5 a.m. Sometimes he wrote, sometimes he read, sometimes he simply thought. The rule was simple: no phone, no distractions, no rushing. Just 1 hour dedicated to growth. Weeks passed. The notebook filled with ideas, reflections, and short stories. Daniel rediscovered a part of himself he had buried under routine. He began to understand his fears, not as enemies, but as signals. He saw patterns in his behavior, habits that held him back, and strengths he had underestimated. The secret power of 1 hour wasn't energy or motivation. It was clarity. One morning, during a heavy rainstorm, Daniel wrote a story about a man who missed his life because he was always waiting for the right time. When he finished, his hands trembled. The story felt personal, too personal to ignore. That same day, during his lunch break, he searched for local writing groups. Joining the group terrified him. On the first evening, he almost turned back at the door of the community center. But he remembered the quiet courage he practiced every morning. He went in. The group was small and diverse: a retired teacher, a college student, a nurse, a mechanic. Ordinary people with extraordinary inner worlds. When it was Daniel's turn to read, his voice shook, but the room listened. When he finished, there was silence. Then applause. "You should keep going," the retired teacher said gently. "You have something real to say." Those words stayed with him. As months passed, the 1 hour began shaping the other 23. Daniel became more disciplined without being rigid, more confident without arrogance. He stopped scrolling aimlessly at night. He started walking after dinner, thinking instead of escaping. He learned that progress didn't require huge sacrifices, just consistent attention. At work, his supervisors noticed his focus and initiative. He proposed a small project to digitize old county records more efficiently. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. The project succeeded, saving time and resources. For the first time, Daniel felt proud of his contribution. Still, doubts returned often. Some mornings, he questioned whether the hour mattered at all. On difficult days, the old voice whispered that dreams were childish and change was temporary. But he had learned something important. Discipline didn't mean never doubting, it meant acting despite doubt. One cold winter morning, nearly a year after his first early rise, Daniel sat at his table holding a letter. His hands were steady this time. The letter was from a small publishing house. They wanted to publish a collection of short stories, including his. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He simply closed his eyes and breathed. The success wasn't sudden. It was the result of hundreds of quiet mornings, countless small decisions, and one simple promise kept daily. The book launch was modest, held at the same community center where he first read his work aloud. Friends from the writing group came. Coworkers came. Even his supervisor attended. When Daniel spoke, he didn't talk about talent or luck. He talked about time. Most of us believe we don't have enough of it, he said. But the truth is, we often don't use the time we do have with intention. 1 hour, just one, can change how you think, how you act, and eventually, how you live. After the event, as people slowly left, Daniel stayed behind, helping fold chairs. The room felt warm and familiar. He realized that success hadn't replaced his old life, it had deepened it. Years later, Mapleford was still a quiet town. The streets still slept at dawn. But inside the blue house on Cedar Lane, the light still turned on at 5 a.m. Daniel continued his ritual, not because he needed to, but because he understood its value. The hour was no longer about ambition alone. It was about reflection, balance, and gratitude. Some mornings he wrote, some mornings he planned, some mornings he simply watched the sunrise. The secret power of 1 hour was never about doing more. It was about becoming more, one quiet morning at a time.